We made it. We made it. We made it. Today was a day, y'all. It was a day. But we here. We are here. Okay, let me get my life together. How are you guys? I hope all is well. I truly, truly do. Happy Monday. Um, Hope your weekends went well. If you are in the US, I know we're coming up probably on a short work week. So that's exciting. I'm glad that we're able to jump on tonight and finish out what we were talking about last week, which was um, what is overthinking? What does it look like, right? We talked about all of the things. Hi, Mark, welcome in. Um, we talked about all of the things of what it is, why we do it, right? Why it shows up. We talked about what it may look like in our lives, and we talked about perfectionism and people pleasing, the signs of overthinking, what overthinking is trying to do. So we did go really in depth into it. I'm glad we took our time with that because I didn't want to rush it. It is a big topic, or can be a big topic. So today, our focus is going to primarily be on how we begin to interrupt overthinking. Because our goal isn't going to be necessarily to stop thinking, because I think that may be like what our initial thought is, to like, I don't want to I don't want to think about this anymore. I just want to stop. Like, I don't even want to entertain it anymore. Like, I just want to stop. And that necessarily is not the goal. The goal is to drive to a solution. So I'm going to talk about how you can actually do that, what that looks like. There's about, let's see, so 5 steps that we'll go through as far as like how you can drive yourself to a solution versus allowing yourself to continue to overthink. We'll also end with some affirmations that you can walk away with alive, and just things that you can remind yourself of as you are trying to overcome that overthinking mentality, because overthinking is often just a habit, just something that you're just used to doing. So it's not going to be something that's going to break overnight. This isn't going to be a end all be all fix. This is just the beginning of thinking differently when it comes to overthinking and how it shows up in your life and how it actually affects you. That was long-winded, but I'm glad that I was able to talk through it. So that way you guys know my direction and why I'm choosing to go this way. So if this is your first time, my name is Debbie. I am a certified mindfulness coach and pre-licensed therapist, currently in internship. This channel is all things mindfulness. We talk about several different topics based off of what is voted on through our followers and subscribers, and then from there, those are the that's how we make the decision on what we talk about every week. We have this live every Monday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and hope it's helpful. If you haven't liked the live yet, why not? Just go ahead and hit a like, subscribe. There's also several. I'm saying a lot actually of meditations on this channel as well, and breath work that you can use in addition to our lives. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. I'm going to start going through here. Well, let me actually go back to last week really quick and just resurface the definition of overthinking, just so that way for anyone that missed last week, you have it. But I also suggest going back and then listening to last week's live too on the topic. Hi Ben, welcome in. Yeah, sure, I can list the 5 before going into each one, no problem. Okay, so just to go back to the definition. So overthinking is a form of anxiety characterized by repetitive, unproductive mental loops that fail to generate solutions and create challenges in daily life. Rather than resolving issues, it acts as an unhealthy coping strategy that keeps us stuck in decision making, activates the body's stress responses, and frequently serves as a symptom of other conditions like severe anxiety, depression, or trauma responses. Okay, so we did go through that definition pretty heavily last week, but I wanted to make sure I revisited that. When we're thinking about how we begin to start to interrupt overthinking. There's 5 areas there's 5 areas that I would suggest, right? These are typically steps. They're pretty much in order. Doesn't necessarily have to be in order, but they're pretty much in order. But number 1 is to pause and label the emotion behind the overthinking. Number 2 is to focus on what you know. Number 3 is to set a thinking limit. Number 4 is to connect with your body. And number 5 is to drive thoughts to solution without judgment, even if it's unfavorable. Okay? So I'm going to go into this a little bit more in depth, but feel free to ask any questions that you may have regarding it, and we can dive in. So number 1, which was to pause and label the emotion behind the overthinking. Let's see. Yes, I do. And yeah, so that number 1, pause and label with emotion. Pause and label the emotion behind the overthinking. So the first thing that you really want to do is make sure that we're not intellectualizing, right? Sometimes with overthinking, we're just kind of thinking about the thing and we're not actually dealing with what's truly happening, which is basically sometimes it's just a matter of us being able to think through things outside of actually dealing with how we feel, right? And how we feel is the core, right? How we feel about whatever the situation is that we're overthinking is the core of the issue. And so we stay in the mental loop because we keep looping this situation versus how we feel about the situation. And sometimes that's even easier. Sometimes it's easier to think about the situation versus how we actually feel about it. So pausing and labeling the emotion behind the overthinking is the beginning to start interrupting the actual loop that's happening. Okay. So examples could be you're feeling a high level of fear or sadness or shame or loneliness or uncertainty or anger or disappointment, right? And so because we're feeling the emotion, the overthinking is fueling the emotion, and that emotion is just going to stay present, which means that the overthinking is going to stay present because they're basically fueling each other. But when you're actually able to name the actual emotion and to say, you know what, behind this overthinking, I'm feeling a high level of sadness, I'm feeling hurt, or I'm feeling anger, or I'm just extremely mad, right? Or I just have a high level of uncertainty and lack of safety. Once you're able to start labeling that, that's the beginning of you being able to interrupt the actual overthinking, okay? So when it comes to that portion, within that, you also want to be curious, right? So ask yourself questions to start the interruption versus allowing it to loop. So some questions that you can ask yourself is, am I problem solving, or am I just looping the thought, right? Hi Mark, yes, fear. Hi Lizzie, welcome in. Hi Emmanuel, I'm good, how are you? So when thinking about the pause and thinking about labeling the emotion, you also want to start asking yourself questions about the emotion or about the overthinking, okay? So what am I feeling? Am I actually problem solving, or am I just looping? Is this solving a real problem, or is it just replaying my fear, right? So connecting the emotion to the actual problem, right? Is it actually solving the issue? Is it actually solving the problem? Or is it just replaying my anger? Is it just replaying my uncertainty? Those being able to differentiate between the two is the beginning of really starting to interrupt what's actually happening and rationalizing what's actually happening. Sometimes when it comes to overthinking, like I mentioned last week, is it puts us in the panic mode. And when your brain is in panic mode, it's hard to rationalize. It's hard to really think of it logically. So starting to ask yourself these questions interrupts the loop, gets down to the bottom of the emotion, so that way you're able to deal with that, And then once you're able to deal with that and process the emotion, that gives you more clarity to be able to actually think through the situation. So that is, let's see here. Just going to, just a second, y'all. I don't have my moderator today, so just a second. Okay. I get into a state of rumination. Yes, it happens often. I'm already monetized, Emmanuel. Okay, so when it comes to, yes, so that when it comes to that, being curious, ask yourself the right questions, that begins to interrupt the rumination. It begins to interrupt the internal conflicts, because oftentimes overthinking is there's an internal conflict present where you are trying to solve for something and you feel the opposite of that thing. So for example, you're wanting to solve an issue with a friend, but you still have all of these emotions towards the friend. So you're trying to create and reconcile and fix the thing when you still have all of these emotions and things that you haven't dealt with. So that also can create the spiral of rumination or overthinking. So there's a lot that goes into that, but that's the gist of what you want to, where you want to start. Pause and label the emotion behind the overthink, and be curious about those emotions. Okay, be curious about the overthinking and why it's actually present. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything here. Looping repeats the same thoughts without resolution. The goal isn't to stop overthinking. We got that. The goal is to trust yourself enough that you don't have to think about everything endlessly, because overthinking can also be a lack of trust of self, right? So like, I don't trust myself to be able to make this decision, or I don't trust myself to be able to, go into this direction and confidently, based off of with my capabilities and abilities to be able to conquer whatever that thing is. So a lot of times overthinking is a way to procrastinate. And I mentioned this last week. It's a way to procrastinate often. People who have like imposter syndrome and things of that matter, they often are like experiencing, overthinking because of the fact that they are not sure of themselves in a particular space. So yes, the goal is to trust yourself enough that you don't have to think about it endlessly. If you find yourself that there is no action to actually take, then it's safe to say that you are overthinking, right? So if you are overthinking about a thing and you don't find anything else that you can actually do to solve, right? So you've done all of the things that you could control and you're continuing to think about it, that's often an indicator that there's overthinking present, right? So sometimes we think that thinking about the thing over and over and over again is the solve, and it's not. It's not. So that's another aspect of things. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2, focus on what you know. Okay, focus on what you know. So instead of what if, try maybe what do I know right now. Oftentimes we're spending so much time thinking about the what ifs. Okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? And we go through this long list of what ifs, and then we start to ruminate about the what ifs, right? We start to overthink the what ifs. Bringing yourself back to what you actually know and what you can actually control is a way to start to interrupt the loop. So in this grounds you to be present rather than imagine futures, right? Because that's where the anxiety just kind of just lives, in the future. You do not need to think your way into peace. Key, right? That is key. A lot of times we think that, okay, if I just think through this long and hard enough, I'll be able to find the solution or the peace that I want. And it's not necessarily the case, right? Sometimes peace comes when you stop demanding certainty and start trusting yourself to handle whatever comes next, okay? instead of thinking about, okay, if I try to force peace in some kind of way, then maybe that will fix the issue. And that's not necessarily the case, right? And then sometimes we are waiting until we feel 100% confident, or waiting until we find a solution we like, right? Sometimes when we're trying to come to solutions and decision making, because we don't see a solution that we like, we say we're confused, or we say we lack clarity. And really, it's just we don't like the outcomes. We don't see a good outcome either way we go, and because of that, we stay in the loop of trying to think and figure out all of the things. And really, the answer to your question, or the answer to your concern, or the answer to your situation isn't ideal, right? It's not 100% the best thing that could happen or would want to happen. And because of that, we sit in these mental loops instead of accepting or getting to a place of acceptance where, okay, if I make this decision, this is the best decision for my situation, even though it's not ideal for me. Okay, and getting to a state of acceptance is a more productive way of spending your time versus the rumination and the overthinking of the situation. I hope that makes sense, and I hope this is helpful, y'all. Let me know in the comments if this is helpful. That is number 2, focus on what you know. Number 3, set a thinking limit. Set a thinking limit, all right? Now, this can show up in several different ways, and it can work for several different situations. Some situations are more drastic or more chaotic than others, where this may or may not actually work. Like if you are overthinking, a layoff, or if you're overthinking, like a death in your family or something like that. Those things are a little bit more drastic, and this may not work for that. But for those simple decision-making things that you're trying to figure out, and you're trying to compartmentalize in a way to make sense of things, set a thinking limit can be helpful. Also, setting like a thinking limit every day, to where it's like, okay, at the end of the day, I sit for 30 to 45 minutes and just write out all of the things that I'm concerned about, that I've been overthinking about throughout the day. I write those things out, so that way I can actually visually plan out those things versus allowing it to loop in your mind. Oftentimes the looping happens because we can't visually see what our options are, and we just allow it to replay over and over and over again, versus us trying to make sure that we actually drive to a solution. And sometimes journaling or writing things down, making charts and things like that can be helpful to initiate a option of change, or to initiate an option of solution. Okay. So give yourself a specific amount of time to think through the problem. Set aside 15 to 30 minutes or whatever time frame you need. Don't try to do it for 2-3 hours, because that would be overthinking, guys. Set aside 15 to 30 minutes once a day. You can do it once a day, or if it's for a particular situation, to write your worries down and to sort them out into what I can control and what I can't control, right? Outside of that time, make sure to postpone it to this time window, so that way you're not overthinking it throughout the day, right? Because ultimately, when you're trying to solve, or you're trying to drive to either a solution or drive to just a decision, right? You want to really think through what it is you can control and what you can't. And oftentimes overthinking is us trying to figure out things that we just can't control, right? And once you're able to separate the two and really like put that down and visually see what it is that you need to do, or need to try to do, or try to figure out, it will bring some sense of clarity to where it's like, oh, the answer is here. Oftentimes we already know the answer. Like I said, we just don't like the answer, right? So this will help you really separate the two and really only focus in on the things that you can control. Okay. And then from there, you can decide on your next step. Action often creates more clarity than endless analysis. Sometimes we get into our research mode, we get into our analytical brains, and we try to, drive all of these things home, but it really isn't getting us anywhere. It's just keeping us on the loop, okay? So when it comes to the next one, it's number 4. Just a second here, y'all. Okay, so when it comes to number 4, connect with your body. This is another way to become more present. Oftentimes when we're overthinking, we're having everything looping right here, and there's a lot happening in the body, whether it be emotions and feelings or just tensions and things. So if you feel like your overthinking is just really overwhelming to the point where you're not able to really even rationalize, connecting with your body first before starting to work through number 1 through 3 can be helpful, okay? So making sure that you have a way to ground yourself, whether that be through deep breathing, it be exercise, walking, stretching, prayer, meditation, just movement in general can get you out of your brain and into the body, and that can bring you back to the present moment. Yep, deep breathing, walking, stretching, prayer, meditation, grounding techniques, singing, dancing, creativity. If you are an artist or if you play an instrument or anything like that, having yourself grounded a bit before going through these steps can be helpful. Again, it's not about stopping overthinking. It's about reassuring your body and mind that you are okay. It's about acceptance, it's about faith, it's about trust, right? And so sometimes it's very hard to get there intellectually because of the fact that we are ruminating so heavy. So connecting with your body will bring you back to the present in order for you to start asking those real questions, okay? Hi, sibling content, welcome in. So that's number 4. And then number 5, which is our last one, and then we'll end with affirmations. Number 5, drive thoughts to solution without judgment, even if it's unfavorable. Just like I was saying before, sometimes we ruminate and we overthink because we don't like the answer. We don't like the answer or answers. We don't like our options. And because of that, we stay in a loop. So you want to drive your thoughts to a solution. Now, a solution doesn't necessarily mean that you have it all figured out. It just means that I want to decide on what my next step is, right? It doesn't have to be, I have everything spelled out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is how it's going to happen. Just what is my next step? Based off of what I know right now, what is it that I can do, right? So it goes back to what is actually within my control. I can control my responses. I can control my effort. I can control my boundaries. I can control my words. I can control my choices. That's what I can control. And highlighting what you cannot control, so that way when you're thinking through a solution, you're not focused on those areas, right? So you cannot control other people. You can't control what other people say, do, or think, right? That's number 1. You can't control outcomes. You can't control the past. You can't control how someone responds. We can't control every possible future scenario. We can't control a lot of those things. So that's not something I have to ruminate on. That's not something that I have to think and spend a lot of my time on. May I have to sit and think about it just to kind of know exactly what could or could not happen? Yes, but my focus should be on what I can control. My responses, my efforts, my boundaries, my needs, right? My words, my choices, all right? How I spend my time, who I spend my time with, my environment. I can decide where I go, where I don't go. So there's so many things that we can control, and those are where you want to start finding solutions or finding your next step, okay? Another way to work through this is to give yourself a decision deadline. You may not be able to have it all figured out or be able to make a decision right now, and that's okay, right? Instead of thinking forever about how I'm going to fix this, maybe shift your thought process to, okay, well, when should I make a decision, right? Is it Isla? I think it's Isla. Hi, welcome in. So when should I make a decision? When would I have to make a decision, right? How much time do I actually have to really think through this, and giving yourself an actual decision deadline. So for example, I'll think about this until Friday. I'll think about this and give myself about 24 to 48 hours, right? I'll make a decision by the end of the day, right? And putting your focus on that can then also begin to regulate you, right? Because now you're still solving in a way without actually solving the issue. Now, granted, can this be a little bit of procrastination? It can be. It can turn into that. But at least giving yourself a decision deadline starts, even if it's just a little bit, driving you to a solution, okay? And from there, then choose. And this teaches the brain that you can actually make decisions, that you can actually follow through, right? Another thing that you can do is turn your worries into if-then plans, right? So replace what if this goes wrong with if it happens, then I will do this, right? Many times when we're thinking about all of these scenarios, we're not thinking about, one, if those scenarios can actually happen, and if they do, or if they can actually happen, what my resolution would be for that what if, right? So this shifts the brain from uncertainty to more preparation. It shifts your brain from like rumination and looping to actual solve for that what if, versus just looping the what ifs over and over and over again, okay? One other one here. Oh wait, this still with what ifs. Oh wait, that was the last one for that. Okay, so another one here is do one small concrete action. Overthinking often shrinks once you take a step, right? So once you take an action, even if it's a small action, even if it is just setting that deadline, right? It could be just sending an email or making a call or sending a text or looking something up or writing a note, or starting the task, the small task, right? Action gives your brain new input, and it reduces the urge to keep rehearsing. When you're actually in movement, when you're actually moving and doing something about the thing, the rumination begins to decrease, even if that thing is small, okay? So if there may not be, but if there is a small action that you can take that action, okay? Now, this may still leave you with, I don't know if I'm making the right decision, right? What if I'm making the wrong decision? And that begins to loop, right? It's not even just the situation. It's just, what if I make the wrong decision? What if I'm wrong, right? There's a few ways that you can combat this, right? You could be, I don't know. My answer is, I don't know right now, but I'm choosing not to figure it out right this second, right? That's kind of like pushing it to your thinking window, right? Another thing that you could do is, or say back to yourself with the, what if I am making the wrong decision? It could be more so of, what if there isn't a perfect decision, only opportunities to learn, adjust, and grow, okay? It's a different way of asking the question. Another way is, what if I trust myself to handle whatever comes next? Sometimes we can't control anything, but if you just say, I can trust myself enough to at least be able to handle whatever's coming my way when it comes, then that's a way to at least interrupt that rumination you may be having. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when it comes to motivation, Oftentimes, motivation doesn't come until you actually take an action. This is kind of the same concept of taking just a little step can give you just a little bit of confidence or boost that you need to be able to follow all the way through, right? So what if instead of what if I make the wrong decision, what if I trust myself to handle whatever comes next? Instead of what if I make the wrong decision, then I'll learn something I couldn't have learned any other way, right? Oftentimes we learn from making mistakes. And if it is a wrong decision, it may or may not be, but if it is, then maybe it's something that I need to learn within that wrong decision, right? So another way that you can come up against the what if I make the wrong decision, then I will make a new decision. Ultimately, simple enough, but hey, if I make the wrong decision, then I'll just change and adjust and go the route that the route that I didn't choose, or I'll make a different decision, or I'll make another decision. It's okay, you know. Another one decision doesn't define my future. I can pivot, adapt, and begin again. It's nothing wrong with starting over if you have to. And I think a lot of times we don't want to make the decision, or we don't want to make a decision at all because we don't want to have to start all over again. Sometimes we may have to, and that's okay, right? Another one, I don't know why I made these so small. Just a second, guys. Okay. I've made difficult decisions before and I found my way through them. I can do it again, right? There's times where we may make the wrong decisions, but there's also times where we did make the right decision, right? It's 50-50 chance. Instead of, again, what if I make the wrong decision? Maybe a better question would be, do I trust myself to respond if things don't go as planned, right? Because even if you do make the wrong decision, your responses to what happens is all the more important than the actual decision itself, right? So if I make this decision, can I trust myself to respond the right way if it doesn't go right? And oftentimes that answer is yes. And that in itself is reassuring, right? Another way to combat that, every decision teaches me something about myself. So even if I do make the wrong decision, I'm going to learn something about me. And that in itself is helpful for me to progress, move forward, and heal, right? Another one, I don't have to be certain to take the next step. Just because you don't have certainty doesn't mean that the decision is technically wrong. It just means that you have to take that next step in order to find out. So sometimes we just don't want to make that decision because we just have to be certain. We just have to know 100%. And nothing is 100%. Nothing is 100% certain, right? So it's okay to feel that way, but still take at least one small step. My growth is not determined by getting everything right. It's determined by how I respond when things don't go as planned. And that goes back to the other one where, can I trust myself to respond if things don't go as planned? And then the last one, I am resilient enough to navigate whatever comes next, right? We have 100% success rate in staying and moving forward and being safe and being at this stage of life, right? You've made it to this next day, and then you made it to the day after that, and you made it to the day after that, right? That speaks to resilience. And so even if you make the wrong decision, you do have the resilience and have proof of that resilience that you'll be able to make it through regardless. Okay. So that's the end of number 5. Drive thoughts into a solution without judgment, even if it's unfavorable. So just a quick run them through. Number 1 was pause and label the emotion behind the overthinking. Number 2 was focus on what you know. Number 3 was set a thinking limit. Number 4, connect with the body. Number 5, driving thoughts to a solution without judgment, even if it's unfavorable. Okay, y'all, that was the last of it. I do have affirmations that you can take away for tonight. Again, when it comes to affirmations, feel free to use them however you wish to. You can write them down, you can put them on sticky notes, you can recite them, you can record yourself saying them, you can say them in the mornings, you can say them in the evenings, you can say them when you are in an overthinking episode. There are so many ways that you can use affirmations, but feel free to use them however you wish to. Also, you can change the language. So if you don't like the way that I worded it, that's perfectly okay. If you need to change the language so that way it makes sense for you, please do. This is just a framework for you to be able to use for affirmations. I will give them and you can do with them what you please. Okay? We have 7 affirmations that you can walk away with. And let's see here. Here we go. Actually, let me see if I can. I never do this, but it actually might help. Because I can actually go into. I don't know if it's going to let me do it. I was going to try to go in so that way I could copy and paste these into the chat, but it's not going to let me do it, I don't think. Because I'm already live. So let me do it. We'll see, guys. We will see. See if it lets me do it. Actually, yes, it do. Okay, yay. All right, let's see here. So the first affirmation is, I am safe enough to slow down and do not need to chase every thought. Let me do it. Let me send it. Yay. Okay. I am safe enough to slow down and do not need to chase every thought. Okay. This is just a reassurance that it's okay to slow down. It's okay to pace yourself. Sometimes when it comes to overthinking, it's often you're moving too fast. Oftentimes you're just going too fast, and being able to slow down is the beginning of that pause, right? So that way you can start exploring what you're actually feeling. Yeah. All right, so next one. I can meet myself with kindness, and this moment does not need perfection. I can meet myself with kindness, and this moment does not need perfection. So oftentimes we're sitting in perfection, and that's why I'm glad I can actually do this. I don't know why I didn't try this before. Okay. But yeah, so in this, understanding that oftentimes when we're thinking about these things over and over again, we're trying to make sure that it's perfect, right? And perfection in everything, single thing that we do is not possible. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to, not make the right decisions all the time. And that's okay, right? Yes, we want to be logical and we want to be rational in our decision making, but we're not going to get it right all the time. And sometimes overthinking is just the fuel of us trying to be perfectionists and trying to do things the right way. And perfectionism is control. We're trying to control everything, and you're not going to be able to. So this is just a reminder. I can meet myself with kindness, right? You can be kind to yourself. It's okay that it's not perfect. And something being good versus something being great is still good enough, right? Just because it wasn't great or excellent or fantastic doesn't mean that it still wasn't good. If it was just good, it's still good, right? So understanding that. The next one, my thoughts are not who I am. I can trust myself to handle what comes next. All right. My thoughts are not who I am. I can trust myself to handle what comes next. Sometimes just because we think a thing, we think that's just immediately who we are, right? And that's not necessarily the case. It just means that you're trying to figure something out. It's not an indicator of your identity. And it goes back to that conversation of shame. We sometimes, when we overthink and we're having all of these thoughts, there's a high level of shame that happens to a point or to an extent that it starts to feed our low self-esteem, and we start to bring ourselves down a notch because we can't figure out the answer or we can't figure out the situation. And when it's really just a matter of us pausing, taking a step away from it, observing it objectively, to be able to actually make a decision. So my thoughts are not who I am. I can trust myself to handle what comes next. Number 4 is I deserve peace, not constant pressure, and it's okay to take one step at a time. Put this in here. I deserve peace, not constant pressure, and it's okay to take one step at a time. All right? Sometimes we feel like we have to earn our peace, right? We feel like we have to earn it when it's really our birthright. We have the ability to cultivate peace, and we deserve peace, right? But oftentimes peace takes work, and I think people don't see it in that way. Peace isn't just a serene scene in a book somewhere, right? Peace is more so of the mental work it takes to come to acceptance, to come to an accountability, to come to responsibility, to make the hard decisions, right? To set boundaries. That's where true peace lies, and that takes some work. But at the end of the day, you do deserve it, and you putting all of the pressure on yourself isn't helpful. Driving yourself to solution is driving yourself to an element of peace. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Hello, Stefan. Thank you, Chloe. Yeah, you're welcome, Mark. Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so that is, I don't know what number that was. Was that number 4? Number 5? Yeah, I think that was number 4. Okay, so number 5, let's see here. I do not have to carry every worry or solve every problem at once. I don't have to carry every worry or solve every problem at once. Oftentimes our overthinking, welcome in from Miami, Stefan. Sometimes when we're overthinking, we're trying to solve too many problems at one time. We're trying to ask all of the questions. We're trying to solve for every single thing versus breaking things down into smaller chunks. And because of that, we're trying to solve every problem instead of trying to solve the right here and now, handling what's happening within the day or within that week. And that's what causes the overwhelm. All right. So you don't have to solve everything in one day. You don't have to fix everything in one day, right? It's more so about handling and creating a solve or driving a solve for the most urgent and the most immediate decision that you have to make. And it's oftentimes too, when you even think about a project, when you're trying to do a project, you're not necessarily, you may have the end goal or the end thing in mind, but really as you're actually attempting to work through that project, you're doing one little piece at a time. If you think about even just doing a puzzle, right? You may have the picture, you have the end result of what the picture is supposed to look like. But in order for you to get there, you have to put every single piece in its place. And sometimes just working on the pieces versus working on the entire puzzle is all the difference in reducing the rumination or reducing the overwhelm, okay? So when you're putting that puzzle together, you know what to do first. You go through and you do the edges first, and then you start filling in the pieces. So when thinking about your rumination or your worry or overthinking, also think about, are you focused on the end result, or am I focused on the process to the end result? Because once you shift your thought process to the process and the steps versus the end result or the end thing or the outcome, then that makes all the difference on what you, or how much overthinking or how much thinking you're actually doing. Because once you're saying like, oh, if I take this step, that will get me one step closer to the outcome that I'm looking for. That's a bit easier for you to manage than I have to do this big thing, and this big thing needs to happen at this deadline, right? So Understanding that you don't have to solve everything today. One step at a time, okay? Handle one problem, handle one thing at a time, all right? That was, I don't know what number that was, y'all. That was number 5, yeah. We got 2 more here. So number 6, I am allowed to rest even if things feel unfinished. I am allowed to rest even if things feel unfinished. Okay? Sometimes we ruminate and we think about these things over and over and over again because it just feels unfinished, and we feel like we have to solve it in one night. Like we were saying before, we feel like we have to solve it within that thing and that we cannot rest until it's solved. And that's not technically the case, right? We tell ourselves we have to figure this out. I have to figure this out before bed. I have to figure this out before I go on vacation, or I have to figure this out before I do this or do that. And technically that may not be possible. And that's okay. It's okay to rest while things are unfinished. It's okay to rest while things are still unresolved, right? Having a solve or having a solution is not a pathway or a pass for you to be able to actually rest, right? You don't get a gold star or a smiley face sticker for coming to a solution so that way you can go to sleep, right? Sometimes answers and solutions come in rest because your body needs rest in order for it to restore itself. And when we're overthinking and we have all this overwhelming sense of overwhelm, and then we have all of these things happening at one time, ultimately, oftentimes I would say rest is the answer, because your body is able to restore itself. Your brain is able to recalibrate because it gets itself out of that threat mode, or that mode of panic and anxiety, and you're actually able to rest. And then when you wake up, then you're able to actually rationalize and make decisions based off of the facts and what you can control and can't control. So rest is oftentimes the answer for what you need in that moment. Okay, that was long-winded. I kind of got on my soapbox, but y'all gotta rest, y'all. And sometimes we feel like we can't rest until we find a solution, and that's actually what's driving the rumination of us being exhausted. And then the last one, even if I don't have clarity, I can interrupt the stories my mind wants to create. Let me put this in here. Even if I don't have clarity, I can interrupt the stories my mind wants to create. Okay. Even if I don't have clarity, I can interrupt the stories my mind wants to create. Oftentimes, because we don't have clarity, we allow the stories of that uncertainty to continue to ruminate. And just because we don't have certainty, it doesn't mean that the stories that we create in our mind are inevitably true. Okay? I know the Lord, hun. So yeah, so that is that, y'all. Those are the 7 affirmations. I'm glad I figured this out to just go ahead and get these dropped in to the comments. So feel free to take those away from our live tonight. I hope this is helpful, y'all. I hope this gave you guys some insight on how to overcome. I don't want to say overcome, because I mean, overthinking is probably going to be there, to some extent, but this is how you can interrupt the overthinking, right? So I hope this is helpful. This also leads me to the other topic that was on the poll, which is how to deal with overwhelm. I think that's what it was titled. Or was something along those lines. But what to do when you're overwhelmed. I think that's what it was. So we'll do that next week. I feel like this is actually a great segue, because overthinking is a form of overwhelm, or just a sense of being overwhelmed. So we'll dive into that topic next week. And thank you all for everyone who voted after last week's live, because there was a lot more votes that came on there. And the overwhelm how to call it, I mean, came in. The overwhelm poll was definitely, those numbers went up. So I'm excited to talk about that next week. Again, if this is your first time, my name is Debbie. I am a certified mindfulness coach and pre-licensed therapist, currently in internship right now. We talk about all things self-care, mindfulness every week at Mondays at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if this was helpful, come on back, right? Come on back and watch next week. Also, if this is your first time, you can always go back to the original live from last week, which was part 1, if you wanted to get the groundwork of overthinking and how it shows up and the signs and all of those things. So absolutely, thank you guys for coming in. You have a great rest of your night. And I will see y'all next week. Oh, also too, if you haven't already, make sure to go to the website at haveninspired.com. You can sign up for the newsletter that goes out every Wednesday. It's usually just a recap of the lives and links to the lives in case you missed them. And that's pretty much it. I am kind of working on new recordings, y'all. It's kind of been taking me a while. I got new equipment because my last equipment just wasn't. I try to step it up. You know what I'm saying? I got my whole new equipment. I'll show y'all. Let's see. You'll see my new equipment. I got it all set up. New mic. Oh, new mic and everything. So I'm working on it, y'all. I'm working on it. So that way we can get you guys some new recordings for breath work and meditations. But there's plenty of stuff on our channel already for several different types of meditation. So definitely check them out if you haven't already. And I don't have a time frame of when I'm going to start posting more of those, but it's coming. I'm working on it. All right. But until next time, y'all all have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you next week. Bye.